Listeners everywhere, welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, the weekly fix for your screen addiction and a trusted source for discussion of all things film and television. Please keep in mind that for the purposes of this podcast, Joel and Ryan are not acting as journalists, but rather fellow moving picture enthusiasts. All of their opinions should be taken as such. Also, please be warned that while Joel and Ryan may seem like petulant children, they are, in fact, adults who may occasionally use adult language. While they promise to bleep out all the worst words, it's a good bet you will still understand what they were saying. And now, with no further ado, here's Joel and Ryan.
Hello, folks. Hello, friends. Hello, everybody. And welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. I am Joel.
And I'm Ryan.
And we are old school. We are orig. We are back to Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, essentially 1.0, which just
Joel
means
and Ryan style.
It's just Joel and Ryan style. We are kicking it old school, as the kids say.
I feel a great deal of responsibility this time.
Yeah, now we actually, well, you feel responsibility. I actually have to talk now. The last few weeks, I haven't actually had to really. I've just been like, tee it up. Here you go.
Teeing it up it takes a certain amount of talent, though. I don't want to sell short what you've been doing for Michael and I as we've been arguing about essentially stupid disaster movies.
Yeah,
as you said, 6 whole hours.
How much fun was that? I mean, I hope you, dear listener, had as much fun as we did, because
it was a fun stretch for sure. Really
that
fun.
Was there were chunks of that were like straight out of Ryan's dorm room in college, where the three of us would just be chatting away for hours on end about movies.
Well, then that was always your not so secret dream, right? To recreate the dorm room conversations in podcast form.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So it was.
I've been trying to elevate this to slightly different level than that. But
well, I mean,
it does have its charm, I have to say.
It was the dorm room conversations, but with the bonus of 20 more years of life lived and hopefully evolution.
Little bit more, little higher wisdom score, little less charisma, little bit higher wisdom. Yep. I get it.
So today we are going to, since it's just Ryan and I, we are going to discuss. We're going to tease a little bit of some of the movies that are now starting to be. That have release dates that are going to be back in theaters. Theaters are starting to open up, and whether that's good or bad is another discussion.
It's like everything. Whenever you start talking about business in our current health crisis, it's good and bad. It's difficult to talk about because Joel and I are. You've heard us rant, I'm sure, several times about the decline of the American movie theater experience on the show. I'm certainly willing to do that at any time, but I'm not really complaining about watching movies in theaters or, the theaters themselves. It's really our human discourtesy towards each other that's become sort of amplified. We like the model as it is. We like movie theaters. We like the big films to come out at a certain time, to come out at home video on a certain time, to come out streaming at a certain time. Like that business model creates the big films that we have in this era, some of which are extraordinarily cool. So we're talking off screen, and we talked a little bit in episodes past about Disney's Mulan going straight to streaming and how we don't really want to see that. So, and we certainly don't want to see theaters all over the nation closing because they can't afford to be taking years off. You know what I mean? From presenting films. At the same time, I can tell you, and I guess I can't speak for the details for Joel, but I can tell you for myself, I won't be I will not be setting foot in a movie theater until some months and months after there is an administered, known, workable vaccine for the COVID-19 virus.
Yeah.
We're way, way away from that, even though there's some cool movies coming out. So I'm conflicted about it. I'm excited about these movies. It's fun. It was really fun to see Warner Brothers Tenet. It's not the same as the old days, but to see it be somewhat critically acclaimed and to see it sort of help pay for itself in the movie theaters, that's neat to see. But I still, just in general, I worry about anything there is to worry about, and COVID's a big worry. It's changed everything. Obviously, I don't need to tell people that. So this isn't an endorsement to rush out and see these movies, but at the same time, what do we do here on Movie Show with Joel and Ryan if we don't get excited for coming attractions and big fun films that are coming out with movie stars and special effects and journeys to other worlds and other times? I mean, that's the whole thing to us.
Yeah.
So, but you need to use your own judgment, and you need to really, if you do want to go to the movie theater, we strongly recommend you really look into what the medical officials who know what they're talking about, they're out there.
Yep.
Say you should and should not be doing in those cases. And if you want to do as we do and not as we say, at least from my standpoint, you won't be going at all until maybe this time next year, if we're lucky.
Yeah, if we're lucky. It's it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while.
That's the good and bad, right? It's all mixed together, and it's hard to negotiate it in the times we live in. I have to say.
And again, the news is changing daily. Not just on movies. We'll get to that caveat in a moment. But no, the news about this virus changes seemingly daily, and so obviously Ryan and I hope that we're that the current information is will change, and that an administrable virus anti-vaccine is like, hey, we got it, and this we have it under control, and we have a way to distribute it, and blah blah blah, and hey, it actually helps you grow hair, and so if you want to take this vaccine, and you'll get a fuller head of hair.
It's too late. It's too late for me on that.
Yeah. But yes,
you can still be saved.
My little skull cap thing would be great.
You're running out of time, but you can still be saved.
Yeah.
My hair and I parted over artistic differences back in 1996. It's over for me.
But again, so we're saying we're going to talk about these films. We're excited about a lot of these films, and there's some really great storytelling going on. But again, we will
in moments from now, you're going to see us switch gears to pure movie excitement mode.
Yeah,
but we just do feel like we need to kind of be.
Yeah, you do need to use your own judgment and be safe. And if you feel like you can be safe going into a movie theater, great. We know our friend of the show, Rob. Rob, I believe he went and saw a movie in the theater.
Why isn't he on the show?
Well, because I wanted us to kick it
you
old
missed
school.
Me?
I did. And
I'm
also
just saying, we know somebody who saw a movie in the theater.
Well,
I just feel like that's becoming a foreign concept, even though,
Well, next time we have him on, because I know we will.
We'll have to see what that'll be. Next time we have him on, we'll certainly have Superfan Rob on again. We'll ask him what that was like, what he did, how far he sat from people, what it was like in the lobby, all that stuff. You can't really imagine until you go. So it'll be interesting to see. What did he see? Did he see Tenet?
I think he may have seen Tenet.
There have been things trickling out, but that's the movie that would have got me out of my chair I would have gone to see that in the theater. I only see a couple movies in the theater probably a year. And you can be cynical about it, but new Christopher Nolan would have got me out to the theater, no question. As it is, I'm just happy to, it should be out on home video in November. I'm excited to watch it during the holidays and include it in our year-end special. It'll be fun because.
Yeah. Before we get into our coming attractions, did you want to talk about any movies you've seen this week?
Oh
no. Okay. And that's fine. I only
it's interesting. I had some thoughts about a couple of movies I saw this week, but I was going to talk about them. So you were not wrong to ask. What I realized, however, is that they were J.O. Sanders related films, both of them.
Great.
So I'm gonna keep those in my back pocket for a time where we can get some super. Hopefully, we can get some super insiders information about them.
Yeah, Jay. As we teased last week, Jay hopefully will be joining us for a show here. He's been part of this really wonderful series of plays about this family called the Apple family, and they have been. This playwright has been writing new plays to be performed over Zoom, and they've been recording them and releasing them, and they're quite lovely. It's about a family. It's about a family in quarantine. So
and written with the Zoom experience in mind. And do we know where we can point people to see those if they want to?
That is a very good question. I can give you an answer very quickly here because he just emailed me because the one that they recorded is becoming available. Jay, where are you, Jay? There we go. This one's called Incidental Moments of the Day, and you can view it. It is available on YouTube. I believe it is also available at theapplefamilyplays.com.
Very cool.
And it's available until November 5th.
Well, even if we don't get to talk to him anytime soon, or even if we don't get to talk to him more than you got to, last week, he certainly made that third disaster movie a special one. It was already really fun.
Yeah.
But to have him come in and the joy in which he recounts those things, not all actors react to their past experiences. They leave a lot of that behind. The way he talks about it like as their fun, neat memories that he wants to share, like we feel about the movies that we watch. I mean, that was neat to experience. So we're super grateful for that.
Yeah, and I am confident we'll have him. I just know that we couldn't get him this week because he was recording performing this play this week, and they were recording it. Now that he's done recording it, he says he has a lot more time free. So yeah, I firmly anticipate.
Don't we all?
Yeah,
I mean, even those of us who are working like crazy at home, it feels like you have more time free.
Right.
Maybe it's just me. I'm a single guy. When I'm done typing something, my kid's not pulling on my pant leg.
Yeah, I get to experience. I'm in the process of trying to create a outdoor concert that we're going to try to perform safely. So I get to sit next to my son when he starts school on Monday. So he'll be at his desk, and I'll be a few feet away at my desk, and so I'm there to try to help him. With anything.
Plus do this new project that fell into your lap.
Yep. So that'll be
interesting.
That'll be fun. All right. So anyway, we're going to talk about coming attractions, some new films that are coming down the pike, some really exciting ones. Now, the caveat on this is obviously because of the coronavirus, these release, we approach this as between now and March of next year.
Yeah, we're trying not to get into April, May, and the summer months. We hope if things are improving on the ground that we'll get to do a whole different episode about those specifically. Like all of our preview episodes, such as they are not evergreen, obviously. Time goes by and the movies get released. Everyone gets opinions about them, and you don't care what we think about them anymore.
And
but
really, nor should
they're
you.
fun for us to do. We think it's fun to put stuff on people's radar. I think when we were coming up with this show, it was fun to list out a bunch of stuff and look at
Mhm.
them and go, oh, what's this? You know, a bunch of them I had never heard of. So
Yeah.
that was neat. Joel hopefully has a good thing going there, because I'm not going to even remember a lot of these by name, even though I helped do the list. I'm going to
Sure.
have to be told what they are.
Sure.
As
Well,
always, things change. All of our previews are full of movies that didn't come out when they were supposed to. We can only imagine that this one will be that in the extreme, but whatever. It's not
mhm.
really about that. It's about, look, here's what's on the radar. Let's get excited, or let's be skeptical, or both. You know, let's
Yeah.
just get into talking about what we think about them. That'll be fun.
Yeah. So let's jump right into a chunk of movies. These will be high profile superhero movies. Most of them based on giant comic book titles.
And a couple of these are right around the corner. I was surprised how close one of them was.
Yeah. So let's start out with Wonder Woman 84.
Woo!
Yeah, so the sequel to DC's Wonder Woman, and of course Justice League, and
Hollywood's answer to let's remake every movie from the summer of 1984
yeah,
is to set the Wonder Woman sequel in that magical year. Did you like the first Wonder Woman? You did, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I did. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought great world building, and Gal Gadot. I think we do pronounce the T.
Do we?
I think so. I want to say that I saw an interview and she's like, no, we do pronounce the T. But she's incredibly charming on screen, and obviously really fun, badass fight sequences.
She's really, really well cast as Wonder Woman. It's magical. There's nothing much in her filmography before that film. She's got screen presence and, you know, beauty and all that stuff that you want. She's got a sort of natural delivery, but nothing that suggested, oh, just stick her in a movie and she'll carry the movie. But even in Batman versus Superman, just her, you know, when she shows up on screen in that, she just takes the screen. She just takes
absolutely.
it.
That movie,
and it made you excited for Wonder Woman. And then Wonder Woman had, you know, it was a big fun film, but it had that woman's touch, I think, which really made a difference. The director of that film, you know, her sort of approach to the material. I think we've seen a lot of these fish out of water, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like pretty much the first and latest Thor movies were designed to take a character out of his element and see the drama and fun stuff that ensued. Then I thought Wonder Woman did a really, really great job of having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
While still, when it's time for her to just step up and be that special hero that the world needs, you know, it just happens very naturally. It was a great balance. So I've seen the ads for 1984. They look like what you'd expect comparatively. It's a bright, shiny movie.
Yep.
With an overabundance of color and goofiness.
Mm-hmm. And they're gonna try to do that fish out of water element again with somehow they were able to bring back
an era that at least our generation can relate to a little bit more directly.
But bringing back a character that we thought was dead.
Somehow, we don't know how, right? The trailer, I only watched one trailer, but it certainly shows that character's presence, but it doesn't really show how they got there.
Not specifically. I mean, we know that our villain, our super villain in this has something that he's, you know, because they tease it in the trailer with, you know, what is the thing that you want most in life, and you can have it. So clearly, I think that's where we're getting with Steve being able to come back, with Chris Pine coming back in this, is that's the one thing that she wants more than anything. So how does that all play in? And who is this character really? Is it? Really,
I thought they were going to pull a Wonder Woman, 1978, and just like have him play a character with a different name who's the same guy.
No, apparently it's the same guy.
I thought that'd be a nice I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be stupid, but it'd be a nice throwback. And whatever gets Chris back involved, he's really great.
Yep, they're great together. And yeah, but
And
that's our
a
official
little shout out to Thor, who I just mentioned, Chris. I know he's got the most famous last name in movies. Why can't I remember?
Hemsworth.
Yeah, Hemsworth.
Yeah.
Of the fighting Hemsworths, he's good at this too. They're both really good at playing what would typically be in movies past, what would be the female character, the love interest / support figure.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say it takes a special kind of guy to live in that role, because you have to be more than just a little secure in your own masculinity to sort of dive right into that from a Hollywood standpoint. And Pine in the original Wonder Woman is just fantastic.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm glad we found a sci-fi comic book way to preserve that relationship.
Yeah, and we have, and then it'll be interesting because Kristen Wiig, who, we've known from broad comedy and everything, she's
winked at us with some pretty nice dramatic things too. And most comic book movies are somewhere in between, right?
Yeah, so we'll see how her, obviously, her wealth of comedic talent is balanced with what with being a formidable foe. So that'll be super interesting, I think. So I'm looking forward to it.
We're all pretty much looking forward to that one.
Yep. Another curious superhero installment in the franchise is Black Widow.
That had a good trailer too, of a very different kind.
Yeah, very much so. And it's ever since, of the original Avengers, the character of Natasha Romanoff finally getting her own film. Spoiler alert, we watched her die in the Avengers, the final Avengers movie. No, actually not even in the final Avengers movie, in Infinity War.
No, it was the final one.
It was the final one. You're right. You're right. So
it was a very Infinity War callback, right? But it was the.
Yeah. She did. I couldn't.
I have to say that is the best moment in Infinity War. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
It really is gut-wrenching moment between those two characters, and it just keeps paying off when they come back on that platform and everybody's feeling victorious, and then they look around and somebody's missing.
Yeah,
that whole deal was really, really well done, really well set up by the previous movie. It had all that great Marvel magic to it. So as much as I don't like seeing Black Widow gone, but I hate to see them undo that in any way. Whereas I'm thrilled that they're bringing Chris Pine back to life. I'm like, that's whatever. That doesn't feel. I feel like we've gotten a lot of drama out of that from Wonder Woman's perspective. From our perspective, it's not that important. I think from the audience's perspective, Black Widow's sacrifice is really, really important and really needs to be preserved, basically.
Yeah.
But I got the feeling they didn't come out and say it, but it really does feel like a prequel kind of when you watch.
I believe it is. I mean, I think it's a prequel. It's an origin story leading into events that happened before the first snap, I guess. But yeah, and obviously from a Marvel giant business entity, they're able to introduce some characters that clearly we're going to meet down the line in other Marvel films.
They're real good at that.
Yeah,
they're real good at doing that.
So it does allow.
I mean, they're real good at doing that.
And clearly they want to keep that Black Widow lineage, I guess, for lack of a better word. Even though Black Widow's gone, they'll be able to have that someone else from that Natasha Romanoff world in the Avengers outside.
Perhaps carrying on the flame, and maybe some other threats from that world too that could interact with us later.
So
we'll see.
Yeah, so I mean,
it looks like the same thing as all the Marvel movies, and yet it looks like something different than all the other Marvel movies. So basically, just another kind of Marvel film. We'll see how they balance those two ideas. And but Natasha's great. She should have had her own movie by now. She should have had her own movie a long time ago.
Yeah,
so I agree with you. It's a long time coming, but no use complaining. It's almost here. That should be fun. I'm excited for that. She's one of my favorite characters. She's just a person. She's just a person fighting titans, and it with abandon.
Yeah,
I love that about her, and so I'm excited to see her in her element.
Yeah, the moment I believe in the first Avengers movie where it's she and and Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner, and they're just like, this is nothing we were ever trained for. This is not. Right. This is we're dealing with aliens and gods. This is nothing we were ever trained for, and yet they step up and do it. They're like, well, this is. Who else is going to do it? We got to do it. We're really, really good at this. So let's, we happen to be really good at killing things and hopefully saving other things. But
they really do represent humanity amongst that ensemble. And, Tony does as well. And there's some other things. Certainly Bruce is still a human, right? Captain has more humanity than all the other characters combined. So I don't want to, it's like you said, it's that it could be the time to back off and they run full on into the fray for us. And that's neat. That's
because
heroic.
Even though Bruce is a person, he's got this superhuman ability with the Hulk. Cap has been, he's been modified and enhanced. Tony Stark has his suit. These are just people that I have a couple guns. And
right. I got good aim. I know Kung Fu. I got my wits about me. That's it. That's exciting to see a movie that revolves around a person like that.
So. Yeah. So that'd be cool. All right. Another Marvel film that's coming up, introducing another ensemble superhero movie that will introduce us to a whole another slew of soups is the Eternals.
Yeah, you'll have to tell me who they even are. I've never heard of these guys. I'm not much of a comic book reader.
Right.
The older stuff from when I was a kid, I'm at least aware of, but I've not heard of the Eternals. What's the
Eternals are an immortal alien race created by the Celestials, who have secretly lived on Earth for over 7,000 years, and they reunite to protect humanity from their evil counterparts, the Deviants. So we have the Eternals versus the Deviants.
It's nice of them to fight for the cause of us poor lowly Earthlings.
Yep. So Richard Madden,
who weren't necessarily created by Celestials.
Yep. So we have Richard Madden as Icarus, an Eternal who is all powerful. Gemma Chan as Cersei, a humankind loving Eternal. Kumail Nanjiani, who I'm a big fan of him as a stand-up comic. I followed him for years when he was just like this. And his movie, The Big Sick, which was on Amazon. Terrific
Go
movie.
see The Big Sick. Holy Moses.
Oh, my God. Such a good film. But yeah, he went out and, he kind of betrayed his stand-up comedy brethren by going out and absolutely getting jacked for this film. He's like this total buff dude now, but he's still Kumail Nanjiani, who's just kind of this geek. He plays Kingo, an Eternal who is cosmic powered.
It's nice when you're a big movie star and you can just get a personal trainer and just dedicate your life to doing stuff like that.
Yep.
That's living the life, really.
Yep. So we have
what's his face? What's Star-Lord's name? That actor.
Oh, Chris Pratt. Yeah.
When he was guesting on Park and Rec,
when he was, he was.
I can promise you, he was not in great shape.
Well, no,
when you become a movie star, even if you don't get jacked, you are expected to be able to take your shirt off in a scene and look pretty great. And it's true what they say about the camera. You're seeing an example of it right here. Camera adds some tonnage to you. You can't stop it from happening. So when you see somebody even in relatively good shape, you see somebody without a beer gut of any kind, like even some skinny normal guy like Patrick Wilson or something.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they have to work to, most of them, unless they're just really genetically gifted, have to work to maintain that.
Well, yeah, like
that's part of a movie star's life.
I talked about that with J.O. Sanderson talked about that. It didn't make a clip on our show last week, but yeah, he talked about how being in Italy, eating all this amazing food, shooting daylight, you see his character gain weight throughout the piece because it was shot chronologically. Yeah. Oh, I totally forgot. Oh, yeah, Chris Pratt.
Italy is great, but it is not the place to go if you want to get skinny.
The Chris Pratt thing, there was a slight overlap between the filming of the first Guardians movie and shooting the final couple seasons of Parks and Rec, and he started his personal training, and they acknowledge it, and like there's this one scene where Chris Pratt and Adam Scott's character are walking up the stairs, and he just goes, and Adam Scott's like, so you just gave up beer? And he's like, yeah, I just gave up beer, and like the pounds just he's like, apparently I drank a lot of beer, and then that's all they made it, that's all they referenced it at all. It was
still, it's fun.
All right, so yes, we have an Eternal who's super fast, an Eternal who is an intelligent cosmic powered inventor. Salma Hayek.
I like Richard Madden and Gemma, and I like the ensemble casting for an ensemble film. You know, I think that's cool. That's clearly what's happening here. These are recognizable faces from really good projects, but not superstars of any kind. I think that's neat. But I don't know. We'll just see. This all sounds terribly familiar in terms of we've seen all this already many times before.
Yeah. But, so how does this movie, how will it stand out, or is it
right? That's the question, and hopefully in some cool way we can imagine. Who's helming this? Anyone we know?
It is Chloe Zhao.
Okay.
She's a Chinese film director. Songs My Brothers Taught Me. Her second film was The Rider in 2017. She is the director of the upcoming Nomadland,
which is also on this list. Although I have to say that one is primed for being moved elsewhere.
Yeah.
But
so
we'll yeah. So a visualist who tells rather intimate stories. That sounds like a fun match for a project like this.
Yeah, it'd be hey, good on them for giving it a try and getting other voices to try to tell these superhero
well, and Marvel's at an impasse. What are they going to, they're wisely not rebooting the X-Men right away after there's a certain amount of X-Men fatigue out there.
Yeah.
And I think it's smart that they're not recasting all those roles because we've gotten familiar with certain faces and certain roles. So I think wait a little while until that news is exciting instead of it makes you go,
Agreed.
So that's smart. So this is a chance at that sort of kind of story with, but still something new that we haven't exactly seen before on screen.
And the final superhero film that's coming out is Morbius.
Eternals is March, right? Or February or March?
February.
Yeah, so that's off into the next year, but still well before summer. And Morbius, that was on a preview show already. We've talked about that, right? Am I remembering this?
Nope, you're absolutely right. We talked about this.
So it shows you some things get moved way out, especially these days.
Yep, and this one is still, they're hoping, they've now moved it. They were hoping for a fall release. Now they've moved it to March of next year.
Not very crowded in March, so it's a good spot to put it if it's any good.
Yep.
It's a cool high concept idea. Read the premise if you can.
It's Michael Morbius is suffering from a rare blood disease, and he tries a dangerous cure that afflicts him with a form of vampirism. So so Jared Leto is playing our titular.
So more of a comic book movie than a superhero movie per se.
Yeah. So this is my these are my I have a plan of how I'm going to talk about this.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I will wait let the plan reveal itself.
So it is a comic book, but being being essentially a vampire, he does have heightened abilities.
Sure, of course.
So that's where, so this is kind of in the Sony Spider-Man universe, that same universe as Venom, the Tom Hardy Venom. So yeah,
Not a terrible movie, not a particularly great one.
correct. I would agree with that. So we'll see how this one shapes up. Um, who's directing this one?
What a waste. Michelle Williams. I wonder why she said she did that because Tom was in it, and I think she gets offered 100 of those,
Right.
and just turns them all down. But then was like, oh well, I really like Tom Hardy,
Yeah,
and
Tom Hardy's in it, and
so this will
it's
be the
kind
one
of
I
a,
say yes to. But
yeah, I think she.
what a waste. Her being the shrew girlfriend, like this pointless character for her to be playing. Not sympathies to that character, who's not the worst character in the world, but anybody could have done that role, and that you shouldn't be
Correct.
wasting Michelle in her prime on stuff like that, in my opinion.
Correct. All right. So Morbius being more of a comic book film. The next category that I have starts off with another film based on a series of comic books, but we're gonna get into these are more spy themed.
Morbius. Did we say who was in that? Michael Keaton, right?
Well, it's Jared Leto,
Right.
Matt Smith is in it. Jared Harris, Al Madrigal, Tyrese Gibson.
Oh, I'm thinking of something else. So I was thinking of a totally different movie.
Yep.
That's an interesting group of people, though. I just didn't want to gloss over that because Morbius has an interesting idea, and it's, people are getting a little sick of Jared Leto, but let him.
It's dark.
Give him time to redeem himself. He's a hardworking guy.
Yeah, I mean it's dark. I mean they kind of they're apparently word is at least from from that first trailer that's been out, they are embracing the sort of the horror, not horror, but like
no, the gothic horror elements you would have in a vampire story. I get it.
So they're embracing that a little bit. So that's kind of cool.
Cool.
But the next comic book based one is a spy one. It is the third movie in the Kingsman franchise, but it is also a prequel. It is going to go back and talk. It's kind of an origin story and it's called The King's Man.
The only reason I am down with a third Kingsman movie is because it's a prequel.
Yeah.
You're putting it in a period era. You're doing some things that I have trouble resisting when they're done on a big scale. Otherwise, the Kingsman can be put underground and buried because they've worn out their welcome for me. I am not. They're the cinematic equivalent of like watching somebody play Sonic Hedgehog for 2 hours. They're just zippy, zappy, mouthy, noisy, nonsensical stuff that makes you laugh sometimes, but it makes you laugh like a Family Guy episode makes you laugh. If you're gonna jam 800 jokes into a half an hour, 200 of them probably gonna make you laugh if they're written by anybody that's funny. That doesn't necessarily make it solid, good entertainment.
Yep.
Those movies are crass and irritating. They're kind of grossly misogynistic, and they don't seem to know that they are, which I don't know how they cannot know, but they seem to not get it. They seem to feel like, well, if we prop up so-and-so, then we can just sort of disparage and belittle and exploit these other 18 women, and it's fine. I don't like those films, but if you like them, you should be excited for this prequel because it does seem, I've just seen the trailer. This is a movie they've had finished for a long time and are just kind of waiting for their COVID window to squeeze it in and make the most out of it. The trailer does, while it still has some of that fun irreverence, it does seem to have a slightly different, we're in a more witty time and a little bit less, I don't know, gross out humor time, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it is. This one is the graphic novel it's based on is a Dave Gibbons one, who was also a creator of Watchmen. Hopefully we'll have maybe a little bit more of that.
Well, his art is special.
Yeah.
So if they use that as their guide visually, then that's another reason to be excited about it. So
Yeah.
I don't want to dismiss it, but I can just tell you,
and
they needed some sort of paradigm shift in that series for me to not really completely and deliberately blow it off. And this movie seems to be attempting that, which I'm grateful.
Yeah, I mean, the gimmick is interesting, where it's like the like history's great. What is it here? A collection of history's worst tyrants and criminal masterminds gather to plot a war to wipe out millions, and one man and his protege must race against time.
So like a sort of reverse League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Exactly. I mean, the
that's fun.
Looks like
I always like a good Legion of Evil showing up.
Yeah, Rasputin. Risa Fons plays Rasputin, who I'm guessing is probably our main nemesis. And we have Ray Fiennes.
Although Rasputin wasn't really evil.
Yeah, it's like, well,
it's a little misleading.
Not knowing film.
He just really liked to have sex a lot, and had some interesting ideas about things.
All right,
and was really hard to kill, apparently.
Apparently, very difficult. Which is why
sorry to bring actual history into this.
Which is why I think that's going to play into that him being the villain.
Sure. Yeah. Rasputin has definitely been villainized by Hollywood. I just saying. Just trying to give real life Rasputin a little bit of respect.
Another movie we have already talked about, another spy movie. We've talked about it at great length on this podcast.
We hardly even have to mention it here, except that it's a pretty massive thing, very near to us on the horizon.
Yep. No Time to Die, the final installment in the Daniel Craig James Bond series.
Yeah, I hope that's good. It looks worse and worse every time I see more of it.
Oh my God,
I have to say, which is not what I want to be happening.
Yeah, I sort of feel that too. It's like, yeah, I agree. It's sort of like, oh man, every time I see him, like.
The same thing happened with Iron Man, though, which turned out to be great. But remember, the trailers were like 4.5 minutes long, and you were like, stop showing us all of Iron Man. I mean, really,
I don't remember. I'm going. Believe you, yeah.
Stop that. But they wouldn't stop. It just got worse and worse, and you felt like you were watching the whole thing.
Yep.
This movie's had an advertising campaign that's lasted a year and changed longer than they thought it was going to have to. And so I think hopefully that's just a side effect of that, and not, because the more you see something, really, the more you're like, bleh. And the guys who've been writing these Bond movies really haven't been doing a very good job since the first Daniel Craig movie.
Right.
Yeah. The second one at least tried something different from a story standpoint, which I appreciate, even though from a story structure standpoint and an action standpoint, it really was very familiar. Since then, it's all been, how do we get back to the Roger Moore films as fast as we can? And they've all been barreling towards that. They've all been near nonsensical in how they've been put together and the types of things we've seen. We talked about it in our Bond episode. We talked about this a little bit. It's, they didn't say, okay, guys, you've gone far enough. You're fired. Let's get some fresh ideas in here. They said, sure, do it. Here's $30 extra million more dollars for this one, and all the same people go to town.
Yep.
The director, Kerry, I'm not going to be able to say his name from memory. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Kerry Joy.
Where are you? Here we go. Kerry Joji Fukunaga.
Yeah. He really knows how to shoot a film, truly. But Sam Mendes and Roger Deakins really know how to shoot a film too. What's the one? Skyfall. That's as pretty a James Bond movie as there'll ever be. It's really a joy to look at from a cinema standpoint, but it really doesn't. I mean, you can't apply an ounce of thought to that movie and have it not just crumble in your hands in front of you. And I just hope this is less like that. It feels like tripling down on that, and that bums me out a little bit.
Right.
But Still Bond. I'm not going to skip it.
You know,
we're not going to nobly protest it. We're all going to see it, but probably won't be seeing it in theater though, and it'll be the first Bond movie since give me a second. First Bond movie since Man with the Golden Gun that I have not seen in the theater upon its release.
Wow.
So it goes back a while.
Yeah.
Because the first one I ever saw in the theater was Spy Who Loved Me, and I've seen them all in the theater since.
That's, well, you know, that's
even License to Kill. That's right.
All right, so the final one in my spies category. Nobody saw License. The final one in my little spies category is a movie called 355.
Oh yeah, this was one where doing research for the show is the first time I heard of it. This sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's another ensemble film, but it's an ensemble spy film of female spies, headed up by Jessica Chastain. Yeah, this again, it's got a you know, Penelope Cruz, Jessica Chastain, Penelope Cruz, Lupita Nyong'o. Let's see. That is it for, I believe, the bigger names that I know, but it's going to introduce us to.
Those are the three angels.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's a.
Sorry, I have no reason to believe this is going to be anything like that, although it just does kind of sound like that.
Yeah, Sebastian Stan's in it.
I love Sebastian Stan.
Yeah.
They should have tried to get Sebastian Stan to play Kyle Reese in that time traveling Terminator movie. Not the most recent one, but the one before that. He looks just like, I mean, he doesn't look just like him, but as far as actors working today, he looks a lot like Michael Biehn did when he was a young man. And I just want that sort of continuity, because no offense to the late, great Anton Yelchin, but he played some completely different kind of character. At least he played it well. Jay Courtney did his best, but Jay Courtney is not Kyle Reese. And he proved it. Yeah. All right, Terminator fans. Sorry, I don't know anything about 355, so let's just talk about Terminator for a few more minutes.
No, I mean, it sounds interesting. It's a team of female agents from different espionage backgrounds come together to prevent an organization from infiltrating a plan that would disrupt the world, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you know, it's an international cast where there's Chinese, Japanese, you know, the woman from the National Treasure movies, playing a German.
She's great. What's her name?
Diane Kruger.
Played Helena Troy. Diane Kruger.
Yep.
Hey guys, if you're looking for streaming ideas, Diane Kruger plays I can't remember the name of her particular affliction. This is a case where a star of a movie plays like sort of an autistic character. So if you object to that, then maybe you won't like this very much. But it's done with tons of grace and humanity, and done in a very real way. And I can't remember the name of the show, but it's got her, and she plays like a sheriff's office.
It's called The
Bridge investigator on a border town near Mexico, and there's these murders happening in Mexico, and her and a Mexican cop played by an awesome actor, I can't remember his name either, come together to kind of investigate them. And it's very moody and very interesting, and it's got really neat roles for people who normally don't like Matthew Lillard's in it and is really good in it, and I was never expecting to see that.
Ted Levine.
The name of the other cop really.
Damien. Well, I don't know.
Damien Boucher.
Damien Boucher. Yeah. Is that who we're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a really neat partnership that is difficult, because the woman, while she has got very special insights and notices things other people don't notice, like a lot of people, you know, with different sort of afflictions like that do, she's just obviously not socially very well adjusted, and it shows what you would expect, the typical resistance to that, but it also shows how under the right circumstances a person like that can really be of use in our world in a way that we fail to imagine because of our lack of empathy for their situation. Diane Kruger's great in that, and I don't know why I felt compelled to talk about that, but I've always liked her, but
she's always really good in everything that she's in. Whether it's those cheesy National Treasure movies, she's fully committed in those movies. And then Inglourious Bastards, and then
for sure.
So
anyway, sorry, little sidetrack.
No, that's right. So that's our, so we got some spy movies coming out. This next category is kind of a hodgepodge. I just call this humans are weird category. But it's funny that you mentioned this, because the category I almost called it is movies that probably stand a good chance of being moved. Nomadland is in this. Let's start with talking about Nomadland.
It's got an interesting premise, huh?
Yeah. I mean, and it features people who actually live currently as nomads in it. Frances McDormand, after the town essentially folds, they just pile. It's a single mom and 2 kids, I believe, pile into the car and live nomadically, just driving, to wherever, and just sort of live wherever. I mean, it's clearly going to be probably a small film with lots of wonderful vistas. Did I say it's Frances McDormand? I think Frances McDormand is in it.
She's the selling point of it. What is an otherwise weird idea of a film? Yeah. But she really picks things carefully. She almost didn't do 3 Billboards, which blows my mind. She couldn't wrap her brain around the idea that she was 68, and it would have meant she would have had to have her kids at 48, 50, and she's all kind of like blah, blah, blah. And it was finally her husband, Joel Cohen. Is that who she's married to? One of the Cohens. He was like, look, hey, it's good. Just shut up and do it. I need to get you out of the house for a few weeks. No, I don't know if that was, but his point was somebody really good is offering you something really good for you, and you're all like doing the math of the ages. Just stop and say yes and let it work itself out. And thank God she did that, because that movie's extraordinary. And this, because she said yes to it, honestly, it has the possibility of being extraordinary. We can't say that for a lot of people out there, but that's not that everything Frances has done is gold or anything, but it could be. I mean, she doesn't have to work all the time, and doesn't. And because of that, when she kind of does something, she's like the female Warren Beatty or whatever. You kind of have to sit up and be like, really? There's something coming out with her? She's cool. Yeah. And it does sound small. It kind of doesn't sound like it belongs on our list, but it's from the director of the Eternals. Whatever. Is that right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So,
and like I said, it like listed amongst the co-stars, or it's essentially just the cast is Frances McDormand and then the 2 actors playing her kids, and then it's like real life nomads, blah 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 and blah blah blah. It's like, oh, okay, so
there's an experimental aspect to it that could make it brilliant or could just sink the thing completely. You just never know. But I like that. I like filmmakers. If you can work modestly enough, you can try different things, Think of something like Boyhood or The Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby. These types of, they're film experiments, and God bless them. I don't even really like them all, and sometimes it's the experiment that's the problem. But thank God people are still making cinema like that. I'm glad for that.
Yep. The next movie is this could have gone in our previous. Well, no, it can't really. But it's another based on a graphic novel, another book, another movie based on a graphic novel. This one is going to be a little bit creepier. It's called The Empty Man, and I honestly don't know much about this film. On the trail of a missing girl, an ex-police officer who witnessed the violent deaths of his wife and son comes across a secret group attempting to summon a terrifying supernatural entity.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That sounds like expensive high-end horror movie is basically what that sounds like. Who's starring in that?
James Badge Dale.
Oh, well, Okay, so this was high concept, which is why I put it on the list, because James Badge Dale's not going to sell any tickets.
Yep.
But you heard me just last episode singing his praises. He's a really, really good actor. And for a time, he was this guy who every movie he was in just one scene in that movie where he bumped into the lead character, had to guide somebody in a way, or had to threaten somebody, whatever it was. Right. He would just show up in one scene, he would take stage, and then he would disappear. I'm thinking of Flight. It's just the list goes on of movies where he kind of did that. We talked about World War Z. He's interesting. He's a really interesting guy. He's not the same kind of actor, but he reminds me of like when Ben Foster shows up in something. Right. He really is surprising, and his performances always keep you on their toes. And the fact that he was part of something that I mean, that premise, we talk about the power of the premise.
Yeah.
That premise got this movie on this list. That sounds neat. That doesn't mean it's going to be neat, but it's a movie whose concept and whose idea is what's getting it made. Hopefully they produce, because James he's cool, and I'd like to see him in a film where he's in every scene and has to play a normal guy for a change, at least a little bit.
Right. Because
I think he brings the crazy to that kind of role. So, and I think that idea sounds very spooky. It sounds like something that starts out super spooky and somehow gets even spookier. If they can manage that transition, that'll be neat.
So we have, a few spooky films here, or spooky with quote fingers. Next one is Deep Water.
Oh, yeah. More of a mystery suspense movie.
Yeah, than a horror psychological thriller is what they're listing it as. But it's.
I try and because thriller gets thrown around for everything, I try and only use that for espionage films.
Okay. Well, this one...
I don't know why, but that's where techno thrillers and spy thrillers. Otherwise, for mystery and suspense movies, I go back to Hitchcock, who never called anything he did a thriller. Mm-hmm. He called them suspense films, and that's kind of how I view this. But go ahead. What's the premise and who's in it?
Well, we have Ben Affleck, and Ana de Armas, playing a married couple who have fallen out of love.
I love Ana de Armas ever since Blade Runner sequel. She's great.
They play a married couple who have fallen out of love with each other and begin playing deadly mind games against one another that begin seeing those around them dying.
What's this called?
It's called Deep Water.
Deep Water. There's two water movies, one of which has Affleck in it, the other has Matt Damon. They're both coming around the same time, and I get
that is the next movie on my list.
I'm not getting the movies mixed up because they sound very different, but I get the names mixed up. So this is the Deep Water one.
Yep.
That sounds weird, man. That sounds different and interesting. And Ben Affleck left the DC universe and Batman and all that behind to slow it down a little bit and to not feel forced into just sort of the weight of having to be in a franchise and carry it and show up and all these cameos and stuff. Like I think he wanted that to work out maybe better than it did, but it didn't. So he took his leave when he could to choose smaller, weirder, more interesting things like this while he's still a young man. I think that's a deliberate decision by him. So the fact that this is sort of the first movie that came out was that basketball movie, which is fantastic. Yeah. But I can't remember what that's called, but everybody should see that. We'll get to that in the end of the year. It's called The Road Back or The Way Back or something like that. If you like sports movies or just any sort of triumphant human drama, it's fantastic. It's by the guy who made The Warrior, which is about the best sports movie ever, really, in terms of how it gets under your skin, even though you've seen it all before. It just works on every level.
Better than Victory?
Yes. Oh. Do you mean Escape to Victory?
Escape to Victory?
Yes, it is better than that. Well, the basketball movie, I'm not sure. Warrior is better. Yes.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Which is about ultimate fighting or whatever. It's like about something I have no interest in whatsoever, and it's still just every time I watch it, I'm like, I'm just, I'm there. I'm sure that's how It's how the ladies must feel when they watch one of those sing-off movies. I'm not condescending. I mean, that sounded wrong.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But it's like, that's the effect that it had on me. I'm like, wow, wow, whoa, you know, the whole time.
Right.
Just completely got me. So anyway, Ben Affleck, I can't say much about this. That premise is really dark and weird.
It's
Deepwater is a great name for it, even though it's kind of generic name. It's a movie where they probably can't tell you much more than that because anything else would ruin it. But those two actors are special, and it could be really great. So we'll see. Hopefully, it will be.
Yeah. The other water film is.
And check out Warrior. It's really good. And check out The Way Back.
The other water film is Matt Damon starring in Stillwater.
All one word, like our neighboring town to the east.
Indeed. That one is a father works to exonerate his estranged daughter of a murder she never committed.
That's weird. I thought it would be more about like antique collecting and stuff like we do in Stillwater.
Like we do in Stillwater, yeah.
So that sounds pretty bland, and it is. Is it Patricia Highsmith? It's a based on a book, right?
Yes, I believe it is.
But with mystery suspense books, it is not the premise that should be selling you. It's the every time it's the execution. How do you take the same old, you know, did they or didn't they kill so and so, or who's watching me, blah blah blah. All those just time-honored sort of mystery novel things that can be great. Matter of fact, that can be greater than anything, because if you can find a new spin on that, or if you can just find an effective way to get us from A to B to Z in a film like that, I mean, they can be the best things ever. So I'm hopeful for this.
Yeah,
good cast, good all-around crew.
It may be delayed even longer now.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
that's probably one we'll be talking about on next year's fall, because it's hardly going to be bumped into the summer, you wouldn't think either. But and it had no poster and it had no trailer, and they're all saying it's coming out in November, and I'm like, it doesn't feel like
no,
it.
it's now been pulled. Yeah, so it'll hopefully.
Anyway, we had to talk about it because Ben Affleck and Matt Damon in competing water movies.
Right, and then they almost had another film that they wrote in this list too, but that got bumped until late next year.
Right.
The final
but
one.
Hey, the next movie they wrote, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Another one that you guys probably missed, but John Krasinski and Matt Damon wrote a movie together that they star in together called The Promised Land.
Yes.
That's I don't want to be all like, oh, you know, watch this right after you watch Mulan or whatever, but because it's kind of a small, goofy political movie, but it's pretty good. It's got a lot of surprises in it.
Yep.
You know, you find the main character is sort of the villain, and you find yourself super rooting for him somehow. So the movie plays a little trick on you in a fun way. And I think that Gus Van Sant directed that, and it didn't get very good reviews, but I think that movie got unfairly treated. I thought it was pretty cool.
All right, and the next one is the last one in this little category is the drama Let Him Go, which is Kevin Costner and Diane Lane.
And that I'm pretty sure will be coming out before Christmas.
Yeah, right now it's set
because you're seeing the commercials and all the. I haven't seen the trailer for it yet, but I keep seeing it like pop up as a Facebook ad and stuff. So if they're doing that kind of thing, then it's probably going to come out. This has a weird. Again, this movie's not telling you what it really is. Read the premise for this because it.
Yeah. Upon the death of their son, a retired sheriff and his wife fight to rescue their grandson from a dangerous off-grid family.
And yet it's called Let Him Go. Costner's doing interesting work. He's really, really good. He's sort of limited, but he's still very, very good on Yellowstone on TV right now. And Diane Lane, is it Diane Lane?
Yeah.
So Ma and Pa Kent from the Superman movies.
This is what they were doing before the meteor came.
But that's cool, isn't it? In a way, I mean, they have.
Well, they clearly really enjoyed working together.
And they have a chemistry. They're not in the second one much. They both appear, but it's not the same. But in the first one, they've got a very lived-in quality about them that's pretty neat. Costner's whatever fifth build in that film, so he gets a lot of the attention, and she's sort of shown in the background nodding or rolling her eyes or whatever. But again, Diane Lane kind of won't be denied in those scenes.
Right.
And Zack Snyder's smart about getting her take, even if she's not on the page, which is good filmmaking. I'm willing to watch a weird kind of road movie about grandma and grandpa going after their kid. I mean, it sounds exciting, and those two people sound like they are just the right people for a story like that.
Yeah, it should be good. All right, so the next one, we're going to talk about some.
It feels straight to streaming though, but in today's world, I don't know that makes any difference.
Yep. Epic. I'm calling this next category the epic excitement category. These are
prepared to get epically excited.
Yeah, these are big. Well, these are going to be big films that with big scopes, they're going to have big releases. First one, and we probably won't talk much about this one now because we're going to do a deep dive on it soon, and that is but it's exciting because, boy, the new trailer just dropped for it, and it looks wonderful, and that's Dune.
And of course, we're not going to do it. We're going to do a deep dive of 1984's Dune.
Yeah.
So that we can sneak that in before Denis Villeneuve's Dune. I know I pronounced that wrong, but I did better than Al Michaels on Thursday Night Football. I butchered that name, which is weird because say what you want about Al, but he usually gets the names right, and he has to say a lot of weird stuff.
You got to wonder if he was just handed that copy right before he.
It's not. If so, that was not a fair thing to do. Yeah. But fantastic French-Canadian director. We've talked about him countless times. Made The Arrival, made Prisoners, made Blade Runner 2049. Made Blade Runner 2049 a similarly sized and similarly wrong-headed idea as remaking Dune or just reshooting another version of Dune. Dune is notoriously complicated novel with 8 million different strange religious and technological concepts that are really, really hard to introduce in a film. When you're reading a narrator for 600 pages, explaining it all to you, you can take it bit by bit, and the novel is genius. But what did we say the last time we talked about Dune? A wunderkind, kind of off to the side genius filmmaker is already taking a stab at this material with a huge budget. And and it's considered one of the most colossal bombs ever. I'm not sure that it is. We'll get into that in the deep dive, but Dune is my most anticipated movie on the radar by far, by a country mile.
The preview looks
the preview's stunning, right? But if you wanted to get today's marketing teams together, take the footage from 1984's Dune and make a preview out of it.
They can make it look super.
They can make it look amazing because it's an amazing looking movie.
Yeah.
It has to make sense to general audiences to justify this budget and it's already a multi-film project.
Yeah.
Boy, if you know the book though, and I do very well, the cast is just stunning from top to bottom. There's not a single off note in that group of people. The visuals obviously are great, but the visuals for Blade Runner were pretty amazing as well. And that it did okay, but it did not get the butts in the seats the way they had hoped it would.
Yeah.
So we'll just see. Yep. Dune is hard. It's a challenge. The audience has to engage in a way and figure some of it out on their own and take a lot on faith when they're watching it. This isn't things that modern blockbuster audiences are known for doing. They're known for, as soon as they run into a little of that, rebelling against it harshly. That's what we've seen with deep, complicated films. They start calling out plot holes for every little thing they don't understand or every little thing that's not entirely explained to them. And Dune's ideas, if you don't make them land, are laughable. They're crazy. So it's going to be tough, but I'm excited anyway. Denis can do no wrong. He's yet to make a bad movie. Yep. He's yet to make a movie that's not extraordinary. So amen.
Yeah.
I can't believe Warner Brothers is, of all studios, they need a hit. What are they giving him? He just had a non-hit for them, I don't know what the thinking was, but I'm proud of them. I'm proud of their bravery, all of them. I can't wait.
And that, dear listener, is us not really talking about this film.
Well,
no, I no, you're right, because I just know we're gonna do a deep dive on the other film, or on the.
So you figure this
film.
one will come in that?
Yeah.
That's all behind the scenes. I'm not really telling you.
No,
what
I know.
Is.
I just.
There's no way I can even do that.
I went and said that it was. Yeah, I went.
And it sounds like Harry Potter in space, but I'm telling you,
now
it's a lot tougher than that.
Yeah, the next film, I honestly don't know if this is going to be epic or not. I don't know much about this film, but it is sort of it's a Wild West film called News of the World, starring Tom Hanks as a Texan traveling across the Wild West, bringing the news of the world to local townspeople, and he agrees to help rescue a young girl who was kidnapped.
It's so weird because that sounds like, with just a minor variation or two, the exact premise of The Postman.
Yeah.
Which Tom Hanks was attached to and owned the rights to for years and was going to star in until he finally, really all the collaborators he was working with couldn't make a movie that worked out of that book. Mm-hmm. And so he finally bowed out, and then Costner picked it up and directed the movie that we know and hate called The Postman. I don't necessarily hate it, but talk about a movie that alienates audiences right as you're watching it. That's a good example. This premise is almost exactly the same, so it's funny that
very similar,
Tom Hanks is circling around to
based on another book. This was a 2016 book that came out under the same name.
But Hanks really wanted The Postman to work. He really did. He believed in that. And this sounds like his getting another chance at doing that his way. So beyond that, I can't tell you a thing about it. We'll just see.
I mean, it's Paul Greengrass film directing it.
Not a guy I would peg for a Western.
Yeah.
At all, but who knows? Greengrass is interesting director.
We'll see about that guy.
He most famously made most of the Bourne movies and United 93 and Sunday Bloody Sunday. And I mean, he's the guy everybody blames for, quote, shaky cam. Cam isn't something you can get away with in a Western. They don't shoot Westerns with handheld cameras. And if he tries to do that in this one, it's going to be different, but whatever, then it'll be different, I guess. Cool. Yep. I like Westerns. Anytime there's anything resembling a big budget Western on the horizon, I get epically excited, but your mileage may vary. I think most modern cinema fans don't care for Westerns anymore.
Another big giant, it's epic, maybe not be the right word, but I put it in this category because it is a musical, and musicals tend to be epic in scope, but this one is Steven Spielberg's retelling, I guess, his take on the classic musical West Side Story.
Well, I don't know what to say about this movie. It's hard to imagine it being bad. West Side Story, the strengths of it are strong, and Spielberg is really self-assured and has wanted to make a musical for years. It is weird to me that he's picking one that's already sort of been made to perfection and is as stagey as West Side Story typically is.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine the staginess being taken out of it and it being in any way the same wonderful thing that it is. It's also controversial in a way that you would think you'd want to steer clear of.
Right.
Again, it's not evergreen. That's an old musical now, and it's full of what at the time and even today you can look at with a historical lens, and I think you can see some very brave ideas about racial politics and sexual politics and stuff, but it's still very much of its day, even though in its day it was so innovative. It's you were in a couple summers ago, you were in a production of West Side Story. It was really, really good, very well received, but still carried a lot of heat around it because it's a time capsule, and all shows are. And we'll see if Spielberg's people tried to rework any of that, but I'll tell you this, Spielberg's not got a good track record of softening his material. Right. As a matter of fact, it's probably the one bad thing about him as a storyteller is that he seems to want to do that whenever he can, and it always, every time, seems to be to ill effect. So I don't know. I don't know how you get the potency out of West Side Story and yet make it a thing for modern audiences at all. I just don't know how. And it's in the shadow of the Robert Weiss and Jerome Robbins version, which is,
it's iconic.
It's not broke. It's for what it is, it's near perfect.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah, well, it will be interesting. I mean, I know there was a movement a few years ago.
It's like if Robert Zemeckis was putting out Sound of Music, would we be excited about it? We'd be going, it really is like that. It's this. We'll see.
I know in I think it was 2012, Lin-Manuel Miranda was brought in to try to rework the book a little bit so they want to try to have a little bit more dimension to the Puerto Rican characters. So yeah, it'll be and I think Lin-Manuel was brought in by Spielberg to work on the script on this one too. The book, I think, isn't the book on this one.
It's being adapted by what's his face, right? The New Yorker Angels in America guy.
Yeah,
Pulitzer Prize.
Oh my God, why can't I pull his name here? It is.
They did Munich together, which is very special, and Lincoln, I think, as well.
Tony Kushner, goodness
Tony
gracious.
Kushner.
Yeah, so that's embarrassing.
I mean,
but
Manuel and Tony Kushner. I mean, you look at it, the pedigree isn't the issue. It's just they're going to have to take risks with that material to do something different. And I just don't know. I don't know. I'm interested.
I will say the woman who played Anita in our production 3 years ago, at the Guthrie. She is in this new West Side Story.
She was working all that out while you were doing the show with her.
Well, right? She was working on getting
thereafter.
She was working on getting the audition because it was just announced while we were doing the show that summer. It was announced, and she couldn't get an audition here in the States, and she had to she went back to Puerto Rico, and
that's right.
Went to an open casting call in Puerto Rico, and they're like,
"Oh my God!" She was determined to audition for that film
because she just was a touch over the age limit, even though she looks younger, and she's a giant star in Puerto Rico.
She was spectacularly good in your show, so whatever.
She's tremendous. So I'll reach out to her. Even maybe we can. Maybe she can tell me a couple stories.
With all respect to J.O. Sanders, if you bring her on the show, I'm going to be super stammery and starstruck.
Well, she's pretty great. She's a tremendous, just a wonderful person. All right, so the next one, we're going to go into the future here a little bit with some epic excitements. This next one is into technology. This one has the potential to be very funny, very explosive, very silly in an action-y sort of way, and that is Free Guy, featuring
Free Guy.
Ryan Reynolds.
Okay, I'm not a Ryan Reynolds fan, as you all know. If you've ever listened to any episode of this, I try and at least once an episode say how I think Ryan Reynolds sucks, but well, maybe I don't get it in every time. I don't know. But either way, if you're long-time listeners, you know what I'm talking about. He's awful. But he's kind of awesome. And it's like I can't really deny what's awesome about him or what the appeal is. I get that. I just think he's just like he doesn't bring any sort of storytelling usefulness to any of the stories he takes part in. He's anti-story guy, but this premise feels like this movie feels it probably was. It feels like it was made for him, right?
Yeah, I've got to think that this was written with him in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So read them. Says it all.
Free City is the name of an open world video game. So kind of like Grand Theft Auto. It says Grand Theft Auto and Fortnite. So kind of like this open world thing.
Yep.
Guy.
Even I don't play video games. Even I know what that is.
Okay. So Guy, Ryan Reynolds plays Guy, who is a NPC, a non-player character, working as a bank teller. And thanks to code developed by some programmers, inserted into Free City by the publisher, Guy becomes aware of his world being a video game and takes steps to make himself the hero, creating a race against time to save the game before developers can shut it down.
So like a really super obnoxious millennial based Truman Show, basically.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
And I mean, who's working today that is better for that role than Ryan Reynolds? It really is perfect casting. I love the high concept idea. The fact that his name is Guy.
Yep, just plays Guy.
So that alone is like, all right, I'm on your side. I at least want this to be good because that's very clever. It's simple, but sometimes those are the most clever things. So that sounds really fun. We'll see. Hopefully it is. It could go wrong in every way imaginable. It probably will, but until I see it, I promise I won't rip on it. I'll be rooting for Ryan and team to go all the way with it.
And then the next one is a thriller, sci-fi thriller, Voyagers.
I have Voyagers. This is another one I hadn't heard of until I was looking at the calendar to talk about stuff on this show. This sounded interesting, though, doesn't it?
Yes, it is.
Is this the Daniel Espinosa film? Or am I thinking of something else?
No, this is Neil Berger.
Neil Berger. All the Divergent films, but he also made, The Illusionist, and that movie where Bradley Cooper gets super smart on drugs, and I can't remember what that's called. Limitless. Limitless. Neil Berger's an interesting film director is all I'm saying.
So this one is set in the near future. The film chronicles the odyssey of 30 young men and women who are sent deep into space on a multi-generational mission in search of a new home. The mission descends into madness as the crew reverts to its most primal state, not knowing if the threat they face is what's outside the ship or who they're becoming inside it.
I've seen a foreign movie that tackles this exact same subject. And I saw a super weird Half-Life movie where they're all convicts sent into space as an experiment to see what I don't know.
I'm recalling that one, yeah.
Boy, that movie. We talked about that movie. I thought it was pretty kind of amazing, but could not recommend it to a single person I know because it's just disgusting and terrible as well. It's challenging. This feels like the A-list Hollywood version of that same idea. Cool, right? I mean, good. Mm-hmm. Hollywood should try and take on those similar concepts, even if they aren't going to be as brave or, fearless about them. It's still cool that they're trying. Berger could be the guy to do it. He's dealt with high concept films in the past pretty well. Who's in this? Some cool folks.
Well, it's Colin Farrell, Lily Rose Depp, Isaac Hempstead Wright, Ty Sheridan, Finn Whitehead.
Lots of young people.
Because it's all it's.
I gotta agree with Magneto on that. Young people.
So we'll see. We'll see how that one shapes out.
Space movie. I'll be there.
Space movie. Yep. So all right. So the next category that I have here, I'm calling "Take Me Back" because these are films that are these are films that basically are in some way related to previously released material. First one up, Death on the Nile. We get Hercule Poirot is back.
Still, it's got an interesting cast, but far less the all-star cast than Murder on the Orient Express. I don't care. I've said this before. I don't like Agatha Christie at all. I thought that movie was super stagey and ridiculous and corny and dumb, and I still really super enjoyed it. Death on the Nile is the solution ultimately to Murder on the Orient Express is pretty out there and awesome, but Death on the Nile is in a way a trickier mystery. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's less about the parade of red herrings, you know what I mean, and really more about something rather dastardly about humanity is sort of exposed in that story. So I'm all for it, Joel. Yeah. I'm all lining up with my ticket for that because I thought, Rob's been on the show. We were talking about
Branagh.
Yeah, Branagh's mustache and just how over the top it is, and some people really hated that. But
I loved it. I couldn't get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's Agatha Christie, you guys. Have you ever read any Agatha Christie? How much down to earth and grounded sort of thing are you expecting? Because the stories are not that way.
Yep.
And this is a good one. It's a great natural extension of Orient Express. It's the other most famous Hercule Poirot mystery. So great. Yes. It'll be gorgeous to look at, a distractingly beautiful film with lots of neat costumes and period details, and there'll be lots of operatic Shakespearean performances from a good cast.
We get they're reuniting French and Saunders for this.
Yeah,
John French
nice.
and Jennifer Saunders are both in it, which I'm very excited about.
I'm excited for it too. I'm just but I've totally revealed myself in this past year in particular as just a super big fan. Anytime you can take something from the 60s or 70s or some iconic piece of film and make a handsome old-fashioned picture out of it, I eat that stuff alive because it's no longer the thing. It's totally the exception to the rule. So I really go into those wanting to like them, and they have to be objectively terrible for me to not enjoy myself. Sure. So I feel like this is a super safe bet.
I look forward to it. It's super fun. All right, so next one up is a true sequel, but a sequel many, 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 many years in the making. Coming to America. Coming the number 2 to America. Coming to America. So in the years after, oh my gosh, hold on, I was right there, and then I had to go away to look at something else. Coming to America. So we have Prince Prince Jafar?
No.
Anyway, so Prince Hakim, we'll go by his first name. We're close like that. He's set to become king of Zamunda when he discovers that he has a son he never knew about in America. So he has to go back to America to honor his father's dying wish. So that's, I guess, a little spoiler on James Earl Jones. But he's going to find his son and groom him to be the next king. You know, he'll be
his name is King Mustafa. Is that right? I'm just kidding. The more I talk about this, the more of a jerk I'm going to seem. I'm not a fan of Coming to America. I've seen it one time. I don't know any of the characters' names. I don't remember laughing at it. It's not my bag. Even then, really not my bag at all. Is what's his face back?
Arsenio Hall.
Arsenio Hall, right?
Yep,
obviously
Arsenio
Eddie
Hall.
Murphy's back.
Yeah,
Arsenio Hall's back.
Arsenio Hall. We'll get.
If this film had ejected Arsenio Hall for not being a big enough star anymore, I would condemn it on the spot. But it did not. It has what's kind of it should be fun. It has a sensitive sort of driving plot line, which the original didn't have. So it should soften it a little bit and make it sort of fun. But I wasn't a fan of that. I was a big fan of another movie coming up here, either the next movie or the one after, Shirley, and I'm not excited for that either. If all it is a trip down, nostalgia lane, that's harmless, and I'm all for that. So I hope it's good in that way.
Yeah.
I hope it's more
there's going to be plenty of that. There's going to be plenty of that because
I hope if it's that, then no problem.
Yeah,
I hope it's more
the
first Sex and the City movie rather than the second Sex.
John Amos is going to be back playing
John
the
Amos.
dad. Yeah, so they even got Shiri Headley, who was she's. It's not like she's done a whole lot.
No, but that's the right idea. Remember how pissed I got when they switched daughters in Independence Day Resurgence.
Right.
I spent the whole movie not being able to get over that. The little girl who played the daughter in the first movie is a super good, accomplished actor, and you skipped her because she wasn't generically hot enough. That is terrible, and you deserve to fail for that. And the movie ultimately didn't fail for that, but it sort of deserved to fail. This movie's on the right track. It really is a reunion. It's a neat idea. I like the premise. I wish I liked Coming to America so I could be sort of excited about it. And I kind of know.
So we have 2 films left, and you were just making a reference to the next movie that you say you were looking forward to it, and you're not so much anymore?
I was never. I mean,
you were never willing. I'm going to go ahead and guess that that's Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah, I mean, the time to make a Ghostbusters sequel, it was in 1989, and they did, and it sucked. Mm-hmm. It's not the worst thing ever or anything, but it just shows you that material, when you take the novelty away from it, like, it's not franchise material. It's just flat out isn't. They did a remake of it that also, despite very good intentions and an appealing, fun comedic cast, also sucked. And how can this not suck? It's hard to imagine. This at least it has a premise that's a little bit out there, which is fun. Yeah. Because maybe at least it might be something different rather than a rehash. But Ghostbusters, there's the original, Mickey and Donald and Goofy go to that haunted house to find the ghosts and remember that? Yeah. That's brilliant. To me, that's the original Ghostbusters. And then there's Ghostbusters in 1984. And that's it. That's it, folks. Yep. You just, that's a well that is proven and able to go back to time and time again to any sort of happiness from anybody involved. But who's in it? Just to serve all the surviving Ghostbusters? Well,
yeah. I mean, after being evicted from their home, 2 children, and that would be Finn Wolfhard from
Stranger Things and everything else. It sounds like he's in that other movie too.
So they are, and their single mother moved to a farm in Somerville, Oklahoma, inherited from their late grandfather. Now, it does not. I don't know who their late grandfather.
Yeah, blah blah blah. This is typical haunted house setup. Okay.
Yeah, the Ghostbusters have sort of become there's something of a myth, and since the forgotten, and many have long forgotten the events.
Just like somebody told me about that movie Footloose from 1984, and I thought that's just a myth, right? That's not real. Yeah, and they proved it to me.
I like that they called it the Manhattan Cross Rip of 1984. So it's Finn Wolfhard, Carrie Coon, McKenna Grace, Paul Rudd. But yeah, we have Bill Murray is back, Dan Aykroyd is back, Ernie Hudson is back, Sigourney Weaver, Annie Potts.
No Rick Moranis though. Obviously, the late great Harold Ramis is gone.
Yeah, no Rick Moranis.
But it's not bad. They got everybody right. Yeah, not bad. And the people they got that aren't those people are Carrie Coon. I guess I really like. I don't know. I'm not a big Paul Rudd fan, but you're going to have to slap somebody in the middle of this, all these other huge personalities who can negotiate that. He's not a bad choice. Yeah. Because he's the opposite of a big personality, and yet he always seems to fit into these films that are full of them. And that's a talent. Right. But you're going to have to prove it.
Sadly, no William Atherton.
Yeah, but what are you going to,
I was hoping that Mr. Peck.
We love William Atherton here on the movie show. But I get it. At a certain point, you're pressing your luck. Another Ghostbusters movie. We'll see if they can do it. I don't think they can, but I'll certainly be delighted if they pull it off.
The final movie we're going to talk about in this episode is a prequel.
And Bill Murray agreed to do it, and he doesn't just do good movies, but he doesn't need the money, and it's hard to grab him, and he's become sort of an old fogey now, and he just does stuff to be like a nice guy, which is something he spent his entire 30s, 40s, and 50s not doing. But because he's not a super nice guy in real life is the reality. But he's immensely talented. He's interesting, and he's doing it. That is a bit of an endorsement that's worth being excited about. But, he did a cameo in the last Ghostbusters movie to be a nice guy, and that didn't help that movie at all. In fact, it's one of the worst moments in an awful film, so it's hard to really say it was worth it.
All right, so let's talk about a movie. Let's talk about a movie that is a prequel to a TV show.
Yes.
That is, this is the final movie, but it is David Chase's The Many Saints of Newark.
It's a prequel to The Sopranos.
Prequel
it's a young Tony Soprano finding his way as a young enforcer. Fun.
Yeah. So
I mean, if you're a Sopranos fan, right? That's you can't. Nobody wants to see a continuation of The Sopranos, and I don't think a spin-off of The Sopranos is very useful at this point either. So the only shot you really have at another Godfather movie or another Sopranos movie is to go back and tell a prequel, and this sounds like the right idea. And it's got all the original people involved. It's got a really good, like, non-movie star, but again, really, really solid group of actors involved. If you're a Sopranos, I'm a Sopranos fan, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's taking place in the 60s and 70s, using the '67 riots as a backdrop for tensions between Italian Americans and the African American community. Alessandro Nivola, Leslie Odom Jr., John Bernthal, Corey Stoll, Michael Gandolfini, Ray Liotta, Vera Farmiga.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a cool world to have
extremely dramatic time in history.
Yeah.
The idea of that group of assimilated Americans with minority chips on their shoulder, you know, the Italians of New York in that era, fighting it out with the actual minority in America. Like the tension between those groups it still kind of is, depending, but it's palatable in those days. That's interesting. That's a really interesting backdrop. I get that our characters were mostly seeing things from the Italian side of that conflict, but that can be instructive too and interesting. So I'm excited for that. That sounds cool.
It should be really interesting, and it does dovetail into. I was going to make a viewing recommendation of something that my wife and I just watched last night. Another documentary, but it is a documentary called Class Action Park. It's on HBO Max if you are an HBO Max subscriber, but it is about a theme park of an adventure water park in New Jersey that essentially it was founded by a dude who was kicked out of Wall Street for selling penny stocks and just being a horrible person.
Being an all-around sleazy dude.
Yeah, just a sleazy dude, and he decided to buy up an amusement park or a water fun park, and essentially he hated the government, that hated everything. It was everything about the 80s, government bad, personal responsibilities, everyone should just be, and so he
pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Created a park with no rules. And it was like all the rides were dangerous, and like people died at this park, and yet it stayed open. And it is a bonkers documentary chronicling this park in the 80s. So
I really try and avoid the American freak shows of the world, but this is a little different. The documentary itself has a bit of a point of view, so it's not really what's the Tiger thing or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, it's not Tiger King.
It sounds a little like that, but it isn't.
No, this is about it. It's told, it's the kids who grew up going there, that are talking in this documentary, and they're like, and if you were born and raised in New Jersey, it was a point of pride. It was, this was a big deal that that you go to Action Park, and if you don't come away with like some bruises or scrapes or scars or a black eye or your arm in a sling, you didn't do the park right. And they talk about it as like with like they recognize how bonkers and horrible it was, but it was their childhood, and they, it helped them. They're like, it shaped me. It was great, and it was Jersey. And if you couldn't handle it, you're not from Jersey. It is so. To me, I'm like, oh, this is New Jersey. This is why. Oh, I get this now. I get why. It's New Jersey. So maybe in the same way that the Saints of Newark. That will be something in New Jersey. This Class Action Park, I also highly recommend. It's just a crazy documentary.
Cool.
So that will do it.
Put that HBO Max subscription to use.
Correct.
You're paying for it.
You're paying for it.
Go get them, Tiger.
Watch Ted Lasso and watch some. No, Ted Lasso is Apple TV. Oh, what did I watch? Some Doom Patrol. And
Tom Hanks was really pissed when Sony sold the Greyhound to Apple TV, and it became the only thing anyone ever watched on Apple TV.
Yeah.
Like truly the only thing that was critically acclaimed, the only thing that had any sort of audience. All their entire slate of programming has been completely ignored. So it's a bummer because that film also it's never going to be put out on maybe someday, but it's not in any conventional way going to ever be put out on a disc that you can buy, or it's just not going to ever find a life outside of Apple TV. And the fact that it was a big Apple TV hit and the only Apple TV hit just solidified its fate as that thing. And its star, I mean, he hasn't, he's not on a crusade or anything. He's still Tom Hanks. He's nice about it. He wants people to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't happy it was given to a streaming service like that, and he's not happy that it can't have a life of its own outside of that. He's just really frustrated with how that film is treated, as am I. So me and Tom Hanks like this, as you already knew, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Knowing us both the way you do, you knew.
I'm tight with both you guys. Yeah. So in fact, I had the opportunity. It was either do a podcast with Ryan or do a podcast with Tom Hanks, and of course, I chose Ryan.
You chose wisely.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
All right, dear listeners, thank you so much for joining us this week on the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. We look forward. Oh, you can reach out to us at the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan page on Facebook, at Ask Joel and Ryan on Twitter and Instagram, and the Movie Show page on YouTube. So thank you so much for joining us.
We super appreciate it.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. Remember, all views and opinions represented in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the speaker and do not represent those people, institutions, or organizations that the speaker may or may not be associated with, unless explicitly stated. None of these views and opinions were intended to malign or deceive. And now, here's the producers, circa 1982, to play us out.
All right. Well, now let's just wait for our guest.